There are very few players in the NBA that are simultaneously not star caliber players, yet every single team in the NBA would love to have them on their roster. To me, one of the prime examples of this is Corey Kispert. Kispert was selected by the Washington Wizards with the 15th overall pick back in the 2021 NBA draft. And even though the Wizards have struggled to build a competitive team since drafting him, he's quietly remained one of the most productive supporting pieces in the NBA. I want to dive into all the stuff that he does that makes him such a highly sought after asset, and why I genuinely think that if he were to be made available by the Wizards, then every team in the league should be picking up their phone and putting together a trade package for him. As always, if you enjoy this video or you find it informative, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really does help out the channel and allow me to continue making content like this. All that being said, let's jump into it. Now, if you are familiar with Corey Kispert coming out of college, you already know that he was a monster three-point shooter. He shot 41.5% from three-point range in college on 6 catch and shoot attempts per night, and that made him the 6th most efficient three-point shooter on catch and shoot shots across all of college basketball during his senior season. And this is something that's carried over to the NBA in a really big way. He's been one of the best catch and shoot threats from the 2021 draft class, if you consider his higher volume and well above average efficiency. But I do think that reducing Corey Kispert to just a catch and shoot three-point threat is missing the bigger picture, and it's kind of a disservice to his game. Yeah, he can knock down catch and shoot shots at one of the highest rates in the league among high volume guys, but it's more about the types of catch and shoot threes that he's taking that sets him apart. First things first, one of the big problems with defending him as a spot-up threat is the fact that he's fully capable of knocking down shots from well beyond the three-point line. And aside from it just being impressive and fun to watch, it has a ton of implications for your team's spacing. He's not just a corner three-point shooter, he's capable of knocking them down from above the break. And as a matter of fact, he took more above the break threes last year than he did corner threes. And he's actually more efficient from above the break as well. He can get the ball multiple feet from beyond the three-point line, and if there's not a defender there ready to contest the shot, then he's absolutely going to make them pay. This sets him apart from your everyday spot-up shooter floor spacer, because if defenses have to guard you further out from the three-point line, then this is going to open up space for your team to work with more so than if you were just a corner three-point threat. Now, one of the big reasons why Corey Kispert is such an elite shooter off the catch is because of his footwork. Now, this may seem like a really small thing, but pay attention to how he's always stepping into his shot, sometimes even jumping into his shot before the ball hits his hands. This makes it to where he doesn't have to spend time coming down with the ball because he's already gone through that process by the time the ball settles into his hands. This makes his release significantly faster because he's basically already gone through half of his shot by the time the ball gets to his hands, and the speed of his release is already fast. Again, this is one of those things that forces defenses to have to play him differently. The speed of your release is arguably just as, if not more important in some cases, than the efficiency that you're hitting them at. If you're already an efficient three-point shooter, there's a couple different ways that you can improve your impact on your team's spacing. A, you can increase your volume, and ideally you'd maintain your efficiency while increasing that volume. And B, you can speed up your release. If you're already a good shooter and defenses are already honoring you out to the three-point line, you can make them have to devote even more defensive attention to you if you're doing both of those things. And they're both things that Corey Kispert does very, very well. And while Kispert doesn't do a ton of creating with the ball in his hands, it's what he does without the ball in his hands that generates a ton of offense for his team. Tyus is bringing the ball up in early offense, so notice that Kispert is going to make this 45 cut and get the defense pulled in deeper towards the ball alongside Holmes. Now, the defense has to figure out who their coverages are, so Kispert's going to pop out to the perimeter with Nance, Marshall, and Murphy trying to figure out who their matchup is, and this creates a wide open three. Here, he's going to set a good screen for Avdia, and while Kispert is popping off of the screen, Achua is going to end up stuck ball watching. Now, it's crowded inside the arc, so the pass isn't particularly noticeable to Kispert waiting up top, so instead of just standing there hoping that Wright maybe sees him, he's going to move along the weak side to put himself in a position to get the pass from Wright so that he can get an easy look while the defense is lost. On this play, he gets the pass on the lift while Jones and Gafford run the pick and roll, and he's going to get inside the arc before running into the help at the nail. What he does next is what's important though, because after Jones gets the pass, notice Kispert loop under the strong side corner to get a makeshift exit screen from Coulibaly, giving him a switch onto the much smaller Jordan Hawkins, and he's able to punish the mismatch. You'll see him do this a lot where he just cuts along the baseline so he can pop out off of an exit screen to get an easy look. And he's able to get away with these kinds of plays because of that quick release that punishes teams for not having somebody glued to him at all times and ready to navigate screens when he's doing these off-ball cuts. And the numbers back up the idea that he is a monster when he's looking to score off of screens. Among guys that had a significant volume of possessions scoring off screens, he was one of the most efficient in the NBA, and he's doing it at a high frequency. This isn't a low volume spot up shooter. This is an integral part of an offense that you can design plays for that generate high percentage offense. Now, I've spent probably half of this video at this point talking about 3-point shooting, but I want to make something clear. If all you can do is shoot threes, that's not going to be enough to make you a quote-unquote good player. Even if you're hitting them at an elite rate, if all you do is hit threes, then you're going to be limited. It's as simple as that. You also need to be leveraging that perimeter shooting ability into inside looks at the basket. Some of the best supporting pieces, particularly wings in the NBA, are guys that can hit their threes at a high rate on solid volume, but also attack those closeouts that are generated because they're such good 3-point shooters to get to the rim and finish with easy looks. When your defender is closing out a little bit too aggressively, are you able to put the ball on the floor and attack the basket to get a high percentage look? Well, in Corey Kispert's case, the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, he shot 76% at the rim last season on 184 total attempts, according to cleaningtheglass.com. That put him in the 98th percentile of field goal percentage at the rim among wings in the NBA. Treating him like he's just a 3-point shooter isn't just a disservice to everything that he can do, it's just not accurate. He is a master at attacking closeouts to get downhill to create a good look at the basket. Even when there's a defensive presence waiting for him, he's able to mitigate their impact by having a really nice Euro step in his bag to catch him off guard. And he's also great at adjusting which hand he's finishing with mid-air to keep the ball away from any rim protectors. It's just so simple and methodical, all the stuff that he does. He's really good at processing what's in front of him and making sure that he's able to counter accordingly. Look at this play where he swings the ball out, waiting for the flare from Koulibaly so that he can catch Keontae George off guard, rejecting the screen from Bagley to leave George in the dust. And then when he runs into Kessler overplaying him in the middle, he's going to use that outside leverage to go to the right and create a finishing angle at the basket, and he's going to be able to get it to fall over top of the defense. This is the stuff that makes him a guy that can join any team in the NBA right now and immediately have a positive impact on the offensive end. Now notice that I said offensive end, and that's for a very good reason. I'm not going to sit here and try to gaslight you into thinking that Corey Kispert's a good defender. I'm sure I could probably put together clips and make it look like he's some good defender, but I don't think that would be an accurate representation of his defensive capabilities. I don't necessarily think that he's a bad defender, but I definitely don't think that he's a good defender. And I guess it kind of depends on what you value or what you look for in defense. From what I can gather watching him, there are some areas where he leaves quite a bit to be desired defensively. His rebounding isn't great for a 6'6" wing. He can die on ball screens quite a bit because his screen navigation just isn't really that good. And he ends up behind the ball pretty often, but he does compete, which is worth something. And maybe in a better defensive infrastructure, he could look like a more positive defender as opposed to where he is right now, where I'd say is probably around slightly below league average for his position. This is also a situation where you look at him defensively and you say, well, okay, he's playing for the Wizards. They haven't won very many games. He doesn't have a ton to compete for. Maybe if we put him in a better situation, that defense is going to look drastically improved. It is pretty common to see guys who are in bad defensive situations get put on more competitive teams, and all of a sudden their defense improves overnight. Now, regardless of the answer to this, whether he is a slightly below average defender or if he's a good defender, for the vast majority of teams, particularly ones that already have solid defensive infrastructure, his offensive contributions are going to be enough to outweigh any defensive deficiencies that he has. Corey Kispert is not going to be a star. He's not going to be dropping 20 points a night for you, but this is a guy that's in high demand in the NBA right now. Guys that can hit threes off movement and leverage their 3-point shooting into inside the arc scoring opportunities are universally useful. I don't know if the Wizards would consider moving him or if they view him as a long-term piece, but if he was ever made available, there are 29 teams in the NBA that should be picking up the phone. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps me out a ton and allows me to continue making content. Regardless, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.